I am James Zemaitis, the Director of Museum Relations at R & Company. And unlike previous times I've been doing this, I am actually broadcasting live from R & Company's gallery at 64 White Street. I am joined in the gallery, also coming from an office by Norman Teague. And beaming in from upstate New York from his home is Glenn Adamson. And welcome, everyone. I just wanted to take a few quick words to kind of outline how it's going to go today. I've already seen that someone has put a question into the Q&A button, and that is where you should put it. If you have a question that you'd like to ask of us for later in this discussion, please put it in the Q&A and not in the chat button. It's really funny because the pandemic does such a number on all of these different forms of communication. Our original thought was that Norman and I were actually going to literally stand and broadcast live in front of the furniture, but the combination of everything from mask wearing to the feedback that was being given off by our various laptops and phones, we're not going to do that. However, our director of social media, Kat Suarez, will later on also be available to kind of walk us into the exhibition. But first of all, we are here because today is the opening of the show here at the gallery called From Lawn Road to South Chicago, Progressive Plywood in Times of Change. The exhibition will run all the way through the holidays until January 14th. So for those of you Zooming in the New York metropolitan area, there is plenty of time to come in and see the show. For those of you who did not see Norman's previous Zoom with Glenn back in early July, or don't know too much about Norman Teague, Norman is a professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago. He received his MFA in Designed Objects from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and graduated earlier with a degree in product design from Columbia College of Chicago. Norman has lived and worked in Chicago for his entire life. He's a designer, an educator, and his practice focuses on using design as an agent for change and as a mechanism to empower Black and Brown communities. Norman, basically, this is his first time ever exhibiting his furniture designs in a New York gallery. And his sort of gallery career began in Chicago, and he's also exhibited a prototype for one of the stools that we're showing today in Milan in 2015 at the Rossana Orlandi Gallery. He has several businesses going. He has his own Norman Teague Design Studios, which is with a group of collaborators who he'll be introducing later, is how he made the furniture that we're going to be looking at today. And along with the designer Fo Wilson, Norman is partner in Black House Studio, which is a team which blends contemporary aesthetics with locally sourced materials to create furniture, objects, and spaces that transform common typologies into original works representative of 21st century design, including a commission called Sounding Bronzeville, which was commissioned by the Wildlife Corridor and the Field Museum in the Chicago Park District. Norman is also working on the team that is designing the Barack Obama Presidential Library, also in South Chicago, which is unbelievable. So why is Norman here today, and how did we get here over the past few months during the pandemic? Kat, if you could move to the next slide here. This is a view of the gallery as it looks as of just a day or two ago. And in the background, you see three of Norman's Sinmi stools. And in the front, you see a bent plywood armchair by Gerald Summers, designed by the teeny firm called Makers of Simple Furniture in London in 1934. So in a real quick nutshell, I am a plywood furniture expert, and we do specialize in that at the gallery. And I had been wanting to do a follow-up show to a show I did a year and a half ago called Bend It Like Breuer. And we've been acquiring a group of pieces that were all produced in London in the 1930s by these small communities and small firms there. And so I was thinking about doing something around these pieces. And first we have the Gerald Summers chair here. Kat, could you go to the next slide? Here, not a great photo of mine, but here is the earliest furniture in the show. That stool on the left was made in Estonia around 1930, 1931. And when the Icican company, this teeny company in Hampstead, London, was formed by Jack Pritchard and Wells Coates and Pritchard's wife and a few other collaborators in the early 1930s, that stool there, an anonymous designer, made in Estonia, was the first piece that they retailed in England as they attempted to form their own furniture company. And that stool was later used by Marcel Breuer in some of their early commissions, including the famous isobar at the Icican Flats. In fact, for many years, people thought it was by Breuer, but it's not. This company in Estonia, the Venesta company, or the Luterma company, as it's alternatively known as, was made things like these Depression-era plywood suitcases and satchels. They were very much a company looking to make low-budget household goods for travel and things like that. And Jack Pritchard was an early representative. Let's move to the next slide. Hey, Kat, next slide, please. There we go. What made Icican really take off in terms of its reputation, if not in terms of its sales, was when Marcel Breuer and Walter Gropius fled Germany with the rise of Nazi and Hitler, and prior to the start of the Second World War, they settled in London and they got jobs with Icican, with Breuer doing the lion's share of the designing, most famously the long chair, which we see here, and the short chair. And Breuer's furniture was basically designed between like 1935 and 1937. And then, let's go to the next slide. Icican's very short career as a company in its first iteration was ended by the beginning of the Second World War in 1939. The last major piece that they designed, which briefly went into production for a couple of months, was by Egon Ries, who immigrated from Vienna to London and also joined the company. This is the iconic Penguin Donkey, which, you know, is sort of one of the prime objects of British modernism, in that it was conceived of in partnership with Penguin, the very first paperbacks, which were rolling off the presses in 1930s, which were available for the cost of a pack of cigarettes back then. And so Egon Ries did a series of whimsical pieces based around reading and drinking. And the Penguin Donkey, as you see here, you put your newspapers into the slot and you put your Penguin paperbacks right there. You could position this next to your Marcel Breuer long chair. And you know, this one that we're looking at here actually is the one in the collection of the Victoria and Albert Museum. We have one arriving here at the gallery today, which I'm very excited to see. So the background for me was, and let's, Kat, go to the next slide, and then we're going to kick in with Norman and Glenn, was I last spring saw an Instagram post by Zoe Ryan, then at the Art Institute of Chicago, of this Sinmi stool, in particular, a black one like the one on the right here in the photograph, that they had acquired for their permanent collection. And not at the time knowing anything about Norman, I sort of looked at this and said, my God, this could be totally, you know, something that Icican might have tried out in 1939 when they were at their most whimsical with Egon Ries. Or it's something that could have been in the Atonet catalog in the early 1900s, like the footstool that Adolf Loos did at the time. It seems timeless, it's modernist, but I looked at the title, the Sinmi stool, I read the description, I went on to the Google machine, and suddenly I learned about Norman Teague. And I started to realize that the community that he's part of in Chicago today had some similarities, especially given the politics and everything that we're going through right now in our country, to what was happening in Icican and other related firms in England in the 1930s. And so with that, I want to introduce Glenn Adamson, who needs no introduction. Glenn, of course, is the great art historian, writer, and curator. He is frequently doing his design and dialogue series. He had a profoundly moving 1-hour episode with Norman back in July. And our title, What's Going On, is really to say, well, there's a lot of things going on, but what's going on with Norman Teague right now since he did that last talk with Glenn? Glenn.
Thank you so much, James. It's great to be here with you. Thanks to R & Company for hosting this. And all I can do is commend you on your good taste for having brought Norman into the picture. Norman, it's great to see you.
You as well, Glenn. Thank you.
So great to be back on the Zoom machine with you. I guess maybe a logical place to start off, given what James was just saying, would be to talk about historical influences and backgrounds. So James was just saying that when he first caught sight of the cinema stool, he actually thought about modernism and the precedents that now are in the show in the gallery. So that kind of initial instinct is being brought into reality. I guess I wonder from your perspective, what does it feel like to have the works presented alongside these historical examples of modernism? Before we drill into what you've done, can you talk a little bit about that context?
Few good words, starting proud, excited, slightly relaxed as well.
That's good.
It came at a sudden moment, and so the last 3 months of my life have been sort of working on these pieces and thinking about production and how does that all come together for a guy who's pretty much been making custom stuff for quite some time. I don't know if I've ever thought about semi as a production piece, but I knew I wasn't done making it. But considering what goes into making a semi stool, I knew I wanted it to be a special, well thought out direction. And so this is really great. So I don't know where I don't consider the thoughts around mass production and how this sits here, but I think right now I'm okay with just letting it sit here for a while and thinking it through.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I guess there is one correspondence there to notice already, which is that there's a kind of implied serial production in the work, which you've now, at least, you made a short series of them. And that actually is quite similar to early modernism, because a lot of those objects that we know and love that were made at the Bauhaus or at icican, they remained prototypes, right, James? So that you have a lot of similarity in the experimentalism of those early furniture objects.
Absolutely. And sort of the optimistic historical way is to say exactly that these were avant-garde experiments. And maybe the realistic way to look at it is that a lot of that was commercial failures. They were utopian attempts to create a company that could deliver something tangible to the masses. And yet time and time again, it didn't happen, or it happened in only a very short series. And obviously in the world of the galleries that we're now in today, I sort of looked at the stool in particular saying, well, maybe the gallery can be a bridge to some sort of future mass production for Norman, if that's what he wants, and he wants to come up with an even more sort of cost-effective way of producing it.
Yeah, it's special because galleries are the stages and platforms that allow for the pieces to be shown, and they, you don't get the background, but me and those two dudes right there, Daniel and Max, we've been working our asses off to really get this where it needs to be, even in an effort to think, to think about the next steps. It's really a lot of thought and time and trial and error and mistakes that really become the teaching moments, but so much pride in actually being able to hold a sketch. You know what I mean? Like a sketch finally comes to a tangible point, and you can you can take it in your hands and say, the seat is too long, the seat is too short, the rocking portions don't add up yet. And so all of that was, it was really poetic to work with an architect who's got so much skills, a lot of planning and time and execution from a digital standpoint that goes into a piece of furniture. And sometimes I think we look at furniture as just another thing that we can interact with. But it really comes down when you add on the backstory. That's when it becomes rich. I think it's the narrative, it's the iterations that didn't make it that really makes it a learning experience for that team. So I just want to just send a huge shout out to Ibire, Max, Ross, Tony Smith, like so many at Yumi for advice, Patrick McCoy, like really a lot of people threw their 2 cents in, and it's added up to what might be $1, might be 99 cents, but it feels good. It feels good.
Yeah, I was really struck when James was talking about the optimism versus the realism of design history. And it strikes me that actually, in a way, actual design history, like what really happens is where optimism and realism meet, and they test one another and they cohere into an object. And it's great to hear you talking about the community of people that brought this work about. Norman, for those again who didn't get to see our design and dialogue talk earlier this year, it would be great to hear you talk a little bit more about that. And I was also going to ask if you could just briefly mention Black House, which is the collaborative venture that you run with Fo Wilson, the artist there in Chicago, because that's of course another point of contact between the modernist past and the present, because Black House is, at least to some extent, an allusion to the Bauhaus, which of course displaced itself to Chicago under Laszlo Moholy-Nagy in the 1940s. So can you talk a little bit about the kind of social world around the work? And maybe while you speak about that, Kat could show us the next slide as well.
So I guess Black House Studios would be a start, where 2 really captured people by design and craft met one another, which is a rarity to see another Black designer in your town that you already don't know. And so when we met each other, we actually met at Volume Gallery for a show, and we kind of locked in, really fell in love with each other's work, and started to do collaborations together, which kind of led to let's start Black House Studios. And this was after working on a project at Blanc Gallery where the title was Black House. And we just kind of wanted to hold on to that, wanted to keep that close to us. And so we started to dream, imagine what that could be. And that was wrapped around products, that was wrapped around community, that was wrapped around education, that was wrapped around making a better space for all of these things to happen. And so without a space, we had a studio for a short time, but a lot of our work has come from, temporary spaces, so to say. And so working with Sound in Bronzeville was, the Pullman Porters had a huge space out in Pullman, or I like to call it Roseland. I think they're separate though. And we used the space to sort of erect this more metamorphic kind of seating thing that we had come up with as a design. And it was going in the wildlife corridor, and we really had to focus on how to keep it in the wild, so to say. And so we used willow as a sort of basket weaving technique and worked with some really good professionals to get that done. And that's just one example, but a lot of it is really creating space that literally has Black intentions, safe spaces where things can happen. And a big part of that is giving those spaces to the community, to program, to do things, so that we could have that time in the shop or in the studios to really create the next thing. Or, we're both educators, so we're constantly working on that. So really thinking about how to be the influence that allows for more people to jump in and say, they did that, why can't I? I mean, a lot of it doesn't require a degree, it just requires balls to put yourself out there and work with new people to get things done.
Yeah, intention is the word then. That's
Yeah.
yeah, so right. And we're seeing some of that energy here in these images. Kat, maybe you can go on to the next image as well. I think that's a berry there on the right. We were just seeing some more folks here. So maybe we could now talk about your studio practice in this particular group of furniture that you've developed. So obviously the Sinmi we've mentioned already, but we're going to be looking at some other forms as well. Before we start getting into the specifics of those compositions, those designs, Norman, can you just say a little bit about the ethos or the philosophy of furniture design that you're bringing to bear on these objects? The extent to which for you style is content, and the kind of biggest boldest headlines of what the furniture is about?
For me, furniture for me is what a pen and paper is to you guys. You get to tell a story. And so in my work, I try my best to tell stories, to open up doors for others to tell stories, to teach in a lot of ways. Can I be a teacher inside the classroom and outside of the classroom? So it's important. And it became really important when I went to the School of the Art Institute, because this is where I took several design history classes and couldn't find anything about me or anybody that looked like me. And so in an effort to do that and work alongside some really key people like yourselves, like Fo Wilson, like the many writers that are out here, to take record of this story, to put this object in front of the right people and see that there is space for you within these spaces, and in your own communities. I just feel as if my furniture can carry out I believe that it can be the boot to kick in these doors.
Nice.
In a lot of ways. I believe that it is a door opener. It shines the light on the many people that have never seen their work in a gallery or anybody that look like them. I hope that the textbooks can show or cover up the lack thereof. And I know a lot of design historians are probably doing their homework to find more designers of color, people of color that are doing things in the craft world. And I know it's all of a sudden a lot more important, but it's been important for a very long time. And I see that the only ways to change that is to be a part of the book, have the content within the book, or kick doors down to make room for others to be a part of that book. And
yeah. Let me bring you back in here, James, because I think what Norman is saying is so powerful and obviously super relevant to those of us who are working as design historians. Can you talk a little bit about the way that working with Norman has changed your vantage point on your territory as a design historian, as a representative of the gallery?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's this deeply problematic, thing in that I, of course, am much more of a retailer of historical work than I am a historian of historical work. And you can't remake history either. You can't suddenly like invent people that weren't there. You can't find more people of color, who took the lead. What the only thing we can do basically is start, looking at who were the Black and brown craftsmen and craftswomen of the past who didn't get credit for things, in addition to sort of like what I call, and you call, Glenn, the Objects USA generation of the late 60s, when you start actually having people of color getting represented by galleries and shown in museums for being ceramicists and glassmakers and things like that. For me, again, what was so fascinating about meeting Norman was, again, I looked at Norman's stool as part of the history of modern design. I didn't even know that Norman was Black when I first saw the stool. So I just looked at it going, oh, I want that stool. Like this is a great 21st century, like update. It's something that is like it's an heir to the tradition of bentwood modernism. And, with Norman, there's really not only issues of race, but also issues of geography. Chicago designers in general are not necessarily very well known outside of Chicago. They're not, they are, some of them are on the radar of the New York gallerists, but a lot of New York gallerists, are extremely Eurocentric. And our gallery is very American oriented when it comes to contemporary makers. And, but as a gallery, as a team, over the past year, we've done a lot of soul searching about how we can make our own group of artists that we work with more diverse. And, it's just one of these sort of like magical things for me, in terms of how this came together, really. I also want to make one interesting plug too. We're at the photos that we're looking at, just to talk a little bit about some of the things that Norman's been producing. Kat, could you go back just 2 slides for 1 second? If you're there, Kat.
I went to the bathroom. She's gone.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect, right there. So again, one of the I'm not really answering your question, I realize, Glenn, but one of the fascinating things about working like this on the fly with Norman, with only just a few weeks, literally, it seems, to put it all together, the conversations we've been having over what constitutes mass production versus what constitutes sort of limited gallery editions, and taking his prototypes and doing something a bit more broader and commercial with them, so that his own business and our business together can grow in representing him. That Simney stool that you're looking at there being fabricated, that is a one-off example within the edition that Norman actually made for Design Miami. So in Eric Chen's upcoming exhibition down there on American design, Norman will be making his debut in that fair with that stool that you're seeing right there, which I love because it's sort of a play a little bit on like the Eameses and their sort of bougie line of like slunk skin, DCWs and LCWs in the 1940s, as they did what every designer should do. And that is, how can we customize our mass production and come up with new, uses of materials as a way to find more people to buy it? Because everybody likes pony skin, basically. Everybody likes cow skin.
So I want to also say that that's not pony skin. It's pony skin, but it's also from a furniture store that their remnants were about to be thrown out, and so I took those as to put back into the world.
Recycled pony skin, then.
So I didn't go out and purchase that. Anyway, I'd like to talk a little about Africana, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about education. And so Africana for me is a real strong combination of all that I've worked in. I feel like my design work has worked around modernity. I've worked around trying to figure out the African American in me, and not laying more of that research to the American, because I think I know what that is, but I'm kind of trying to reinterpret or find out more about my African roots, and then how do I incorporate that into the work that I do? How does that become a learning moment? And so carving for me is maybe 6 to 8 months I've been able to practice carving. Not an expert at all, but I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think that we need to not fear trying something new. At the same time, I want to offer the people that visit the gallery an opportunity to carve with me and really help to think about that, the community labor that might go into a project, and then that the value, or the return on investment that's maybe not cash, maybe it's not a monetary return on investment, but it's just a community return on investment, which is like now 6 people out of 20 found it interesting to carve and went out and started to do some sort of craft on their own. And so Africana to me is it's a growing collection. I don't plan to stop it, but I'm happy that I get to collaborate with people from my community to really think about a New York community. The pieces came to life with the help of Johan Slakour, who did the leather.
And
Max
check it out, Norman.
Davis.
Cat's going in close here too, so we can look at the pieces
Sure.
too. Just a minute.
Yeah, if for those watching at home, if
And
you're not
there's
seeing that,
a few stamped words on the back, which are really hard to see unless you come into the gallery.
hold on,
But
hold on 1 second, Norman. I just wanted to say to viewers that if you're not seeing the image large in your screen, just double click on Catherine Suarez's name there, and you'll see the video pop up for you. So you'll see that detail. Sorry, Norman. Go.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
All right, Norman, cool. Go ahead.
You can see the words there too. Yeah, if you could talk a little bit more about Johan's involvement, that would be great. And then also this other detail that we're seeing in terms of the
yeah, the detail is in Yoruban, it means craft forever, or forever community. The second one says craft as a way to create circles of economy. And so really thinking about artisans working together to come up with objects in collaboration, or objects even in production, but ways to, right now the Black community has a lack of equity and jobs and creating, and this was just one of the many possibilities that could happen within that circle. And so working with Max Davis, the architect, and digital fabrication, others might call it the CNC guy, to come up with this and the way in which it could be constructed. It was just a real pleasure to get to know him. In fact, we had a little boy moment last night, a little bromance about how much we miss each other. For the last 3 months, we've been seeing each other every day. And so, yeah, this is, and it's, I guess this project is really not done. I'm looking forward to the table being carved and completed. And then we're gonna work on a few new pieces.
Maybe Kat, can you walk over to the table right now if you're listening? All right.
So we've had the joy of having a few carvers already. That's okay, I see it. And so the work has begun. I'm looking forward to the completed, finished, the first people that went in to carve, they were kind of carving at an angle, and I tried to ask them to go at a horizontal and to gouge in a particular direction, and I had to step back and catch myself because I think I was being the teacher that I am and trying to control the process.
I have to interrupt here and say to all you design nerds out there, the woman the person that didn't listen to Norman at all was Paola Antonelli of MoMA, and she kept going in a way opposite what Norman wanted. And then when you got in close, she was so exuberant she sliced your thumb open with the chisel too.
No,
So
that's my thumb.
Blood yesterday as well.
Yeah. So that was a good experience, definitely.
Learning experience.
So yeah, it's been nice to be here, and
and there's plenty of time for folks to come in and carve this table. Norman, are you okay with people coming in even if you're not present, or do you want this experience to end really in the next day or so?
No, I'd love it to continue with some observation, of course. And yeah, I think it's more so just being safe and knowing that the people are using sharp tools to get the work done, I think is just fine. Yeah, my control freak session is over. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit, Norman, about your sense of proportion? Because one of the things that's very striking, particularly in these newer pieces, is that really generous cross-section that you're using in the legs and the other elements, which is really, really distinctive to me. And it does seem like a real development from the compositional sensibility of the Sinmi stools. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I worked on the stool with two models. One was Helen Maria Nugent, who was, and I think probably still is, about 5'3" or 4". She's not that tall. I hope she's here, and I'm sorry if that's a little wrong. And then there's my other teacher was Jim Tremere, who's probably 6 feet, 6'1" maybe. And so really trying to think about how proportionately to find a rocking stool that could fit for someone as short as 5 feet and someone as tall as 6 feet. And really be able to get, because if your ass is not perfectly placed in the right part of the semi stool, it kind of doesn't work.
Right.
And so to have that relaxation happen, you kind of have to. So I searched high and low to figure out what height is it once it's tipped in its one position, and how bad will it be for that 5-foot person? Because once you start to lean back and look for that next point, it can be a little scary for most. Scary, even well, not for me anymore, but I think it takes a little getting used to.
I always wonder if, Norman, if you should just like run out of your office right now and grab one and sit on it for a second.
I could sit there, but I won't be talking. So hold on a second.
No, we'll do a quick demonstration.
Okay.
I think we can afford that for 30 seconds.
I think people are having trouble seeing the video, unfortunately, for some reason. So people are not being able to see gallery mode. But this break does, though, give me an opportunity to make a joke, which is free your ass and your mind will follow. A little bit of Parliament Funkadelic humor there for you. So
Excellent.
if people can see the video, Norman's going to go ahead and demo the affordances of this stool.
Yeah, and I'm going to address Kat. Kat, the questions are, people can't access gallery mode.
So usually on your screen where you see the speakers, there are a few little boxes to the left, and then you can click the view that you have. So rather than active speaker, it's gallery mode, and you should see my video come up and then be able to click and pin my video. Hopefully that helps. There's Norman.
Yeah. It seems like it's working for some folks, not for others. It's a bit frustrating, but let's get Norman back in front of the camera so we can talk to him some more. And obviously people can see images of the furniture. If you're having trouble, there's plenty of images of the furniture that are up on the Arn Company website, correct, James?
Okay.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And my apologies, folks. It's like the more tech we have, the more we flail at it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Just, none of us here in the gallery are experts at this, so it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk some more in case people aren't able to see the furniture, and we will actually open up for questions in about 5 minutes as well, if that's okay. So Norman, I guess the other thing I really wanted to get your thoughts on are, you alluded to this at the beginning, but this is your first opportunity to show in a New York City gallery, I believe, in a commercial gallery.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the gallery as a delivery system for your thinking. So, the difference between actually being there hands-on with the community and then having the pieces travel far away geographically from where they were made, and also of course now circulating on social media and as images and everything. So it strikes me that they're kind of like emissaries, these objects, and I really wonder what you think about the platform of our Arn Company as a place for showing this work.
Well, I've followed Arn Company for quite some time, and I love the eye that they have. I respect tremendously.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I was just shown their library and their archives, which is also super impressive for any designer. I don't care where you're from or what you're doing. So I'm happy to be a part of what feels like a family that cares about design.
Mm-hmm.
I got one back in Chicago, just like it. We don't have an archive like that, but we love design. We cherish being able to share it, and I think I've seen and felt the same kind of love for design right here. I think that my advice would be to create more Zesties, more Glenn Adamsons, more Jameses, more Evans, in communities of color. Your job will be much easier if we can help you help deliver some of the brilliance that we carry within our communities. And I think that we'll all not carry on a feeling of we're missing out on something. This type of thing should be celebrated all over. And I know it takes away the extravagance of what a gallery brings, but I just feel like the community in which I grew up in, there might be more opportunities within design if there was more of this kind of exposure. And so I can't go too far into that, but I'm so happy if you could see, come to the gallery. It's a really nice space. They really know what they're doing. It's good taste. They've got good taste.
But that what you just said, Norman, is so important, because it prompts the thought that although I was talking about the objects as being emissaries to the gallery for the community, it's equally important that your involvement at the gallery is also a pathway for the gallery's program to get back to the community and for people to become aware that these opportunities do exist and these platforms do exist. So it's all about these kind of bilateral connections or multilateral connections. And it's
Sure.
an object can function as the kind of hinge point between people that otherwise hadn't connected before.
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely new relationships happening. I am seeing it as a learning device, and I'm inviting, family and friends that also have a love for design to come in and check this out. And I do feel like, I think Fo said it in a phone call, you and me, when we go somewhere as a community, our community comes with us. Like when, this is not just a celebration for me. This is a celebration for a lot more people.
Yeah, I'll quote something Fo said actually in that phone call. This is Fo Wilson, who is in Black House Studios with Norman. She said, when Norman does something well, everyone in the community owns that well done.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I mean, you could not put it better than that. And I think also that that's a model of what community is. And it's just a reminder of something that we maybe don't have as much in America as we need. And that the design actually can function as this kind of communicative, connective device. I am going to put in the chat, by the way, the name of forthcoming book, which is called Mid-Century Modernism and the American Body, Race, Gender, and Politics of Power and Design. So that's coming out from Princeton next year from Christina Wilson, the design historian. And that is a major contribution to this conversation that we're having. So I just wanted people to have that on their radar. She's looking a lot at Black designers in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, but also Black consumers of modern design. Really interesting research for people to be aware of. So I think with that, we should open up to questions, and we have a few, I think. Most of them are about getting the Zoom worked out, of course.
They're mostly subs, yeah.
Yeah, please put any questions that you might have in the Q&A box, and we can ask Norman.
Glenn, I was just going to say, while we're waiting to see if anyone can type out a question, is that I want to thank Norman for his generosity and of time this fall, and for making this work on such short notice, and for trusting us with collaborating with you like on this. We're so delighted, and the other thing that I just want to follow up on too is that, to go back to what Norman was just saying before, Norman's generosity in terms of acknowledging everyone that works behind the scenes with him in producing this work is extraordinary, and is something that actually we still don't see as much as we would like to. There has always been this history in the 20th century of there being the figurehead, the George Nelson who runs the office, and all the people that work for George Nelson, over the years. And I think what our gallery is going to really try and do for the length of this exhibition is really call attention to these unsung heroes who are behind the scenes working with Norman. I mean, the one that has immediately jumped out to me the most, of course, is Johannes Lacour, the leather worker, who has this extraordinary story and whose work is so tangible here. It's so tactile and is such a big part of how you customize some of these works and how Norman will customize them going forward. So it's something that we really take seriously as a gallery, that it's Norman and his broader group of artisans that are working together.
Yeah, I'm going to put the website for Johannes Lacour's studio into the chat as well, so people can go and check out his amazing leather designs, bags, incredible gym shoes. I understand they're called in Chicago.
Sneakers, gym shoes.
Yeah. So we have another great question here from Wisdom Batty, who asks Norman, how do you see your practice moving equity forward within the next 3 to 5 years? And also asks whether you see any school curricula around you, presumably in Chicago, forwarding the cause of equity in design.
Yeah, thanks, Wisdom. Hey, how you doing? That's my little sister. And I would say, Wisdom, that my hope and imagination lends to think about the same way that Herman Miller has created a number of jobs through a set of production methods that that put things into the world could be one of those ways. But there's also artisan possibilities within some of the vacant spaces that are there in Chicago, with the hopes that it's something that starts and sort of picks up. But to think about the push that we are doing right now in Chicago for equity, and the need for architecture and public space and housing, there must be more Black faces at the forefront of that. And I'm going to stop saying seat at the table, because I think it's not really having a seat at the table, but it's literally being a part of that building process, from the construction to the foundations, to all the pretty shit that goes inside of it, and functional shit that goes inside of it. Somebody has to think about that. Somebody has to research how much of that we need. And then somebody has to install all of those things. And what that brings about is employment. And I think that if we can do that, then we've got a really good start.
Awesome. Well, on that point, we got another very pertinent question from Monica Hampton, who's the executive director of the Furniture Society. And Monica's just asking Norman if you could speak to the idea of mentorship in the field.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit in Design and Dialogue, but I think that, I've had a handful of students ask me questions about employment or internship, either at summer or after they've graduated. And it really, it startles me that we can't find a program that actually puts young people in, real life positions. If even for a short amount of time, it introduces them to something new. And that exposure is everything. So think about Black neighborhoods if we replaced every liquor store with a architecture firm, or a nursing, a wood carving space where they could actually learn things and get paid to carve all day, or anything that allows them to be a part of the world as opposed to always taking orders from the world. And I think when we think about safe space, it is that sort of open door policy that I think young men and women will find as a safe haven, but also possibly learn some new tricks. I don't want to say tricks of the trade, but tricks of the trade would be great too.
Yeah.
But I look at the possibilities of some of the rough things that happen, like welding and forging as an artisan, or glass blowing, or any of those things. Like, why isn't that as accessible as a gun, a liquor store? Bad things are easy to access. Good things are really hard to come by. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
We just have we're better than that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
There's a question from Ashwini Bhatt on here too, Glenn. I'm looking through.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Q&A. So Ashwini asks about the role of playfulness in the design, which I think is a really great question. For those who could see you demonstrating this in me, or just heard the description of that kind of teeter-totter quality of it. Talk about playfulness as an advantage in reaching out, and as a sort of factor in the design more generally.
I think it's important in both, particularly as an educator. I always try and make sure that I try and make sure my students are having fun in some capacity, or at least not like completely bored, particularly because now if you're bored, then if you're trying to think about a new design, then it's probably going to be boring too. So I think playfulness is really important. I think also, with all the rocking mechanisms, I think that, touches on people that fidget, and some subconsciously don't pay attention to it, but it's interesting if you can sort of sway your body in a chair. Like if you ever notice, a swivel chair is always swiveling. for a reason, and one reason or another. I think the rocker also pushes, this thought of relaxation right now, that America is, I feel like the world is going through so much downtime. And so really thinking about the American rocker and what that brought and how to bring that into a modern capacity was really key in thinking about it, but also the informalness of like, the Africana chair kind of tosses uh, the leather over the back as opposed to like, fitting it to something or arranging some sort of strapping that keeps it in place. I think it's a sense of informality. I think is playfulness comes in color, but I think there's a lot that is in function as well. And so I can't afford to be too serious, I guess. Can I say that? I like things to stay quite playful. Yeah.
It's something that design can do well that sculpture can't always, which is interesting too. It's like a specific thing that design can deliver. Let me just ask one last question. I'm going to kind of put two questions together here. We got one from Rhonda Brown and one in the Q&A about the influence that other artists have had on you. One of those questions was specifically about the dynamics in Chicago, artist-artist collaboration and influence in Chicago, which I know is really important and really vital there. But I'd be super curious to hear if there are other artists who have inspired you. I mean, I look at your work and I see Martin Puryear a little bit sometimes, for example. I don't know if that's you, but who springs to mind for you?
I think a lot of them, but also singers inspire me. I'm inspired by performances. There's a group in Chicago called Io Dele Dance Group or Dance Troupe, and they are just amazing sisters and brothers. I'm sorry, that dance and drum and bring about the most powerful African experiences that you could imagine. And this is like from my childhood, but also I think, from my ancestors, this feels good to me. I'm moved by capoeira. I'm moved by, I just took a picture of a water hose connection, like fire hose connection, like 2 blocks away. So all of that, I mean, Chicago's, the city itself really inspires me. There's architecture that, I still find new places in the city that I haven't been to. And so I'm inspired by the life of, the city offers. I wouldn't even limit it to, I don't know. Yeah, I'm inspired by little babies. I'm inspired by all kinds of things. But if you think about it, it's like we are, as designers, we're kind of like, we're sponges. Like we're taking up a little bit of everything. And I don't know how more shit doesn't look like the other shit more often. Because, we're all inspired by a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
I mean, look at our posts.
Right?
It's really, it's so it all depends. I do like scratching new things though. I mean, I will say that there's a way in which you then take all that inspiration and collage it into a thing. And so I'm inspired by Africa. I'm inspired by angles. I'm inspired by old things. Like we all, like I love a good thrift store. So right. The thing is, we have to now create spaces that allow us to take those imaginations and build those collages and make mistakes. And maybe the shit don't sell. Maybe it just sits there, but it's really about getting it out.
Yeah.
We want to sell your shit, man. Don't worry.
All right. So,
Oh, that's great.
Norman, that was a beautiful way to close. Old shit and new shit.
Yeah.
There. James, do you want to take us out? Any announcements? How long people will see the show for?
Not much, except just to say to those of you who are able in this pandemic to actually visit us, we're extremely grateful, and we will be open with this show through January 14th. As also mentioned, one of Norman's stools will be down in Design Miami, for like the next month or so down there as well. And again, thank you, Glenn, for your time. I know you're on like 17 deadlines, and I really appreciate you being here again. And thank you, Norman. And we actually have some visitors in the gallery right now, so I can see them out the window here. So thank you all for joining in with us.
And I say thanks to Sandeep and Trissa for all your aid, love, and support. Thank you, Chicago. Thank you, Theaster, for always answering your phone whenever I call. Thank you to my wife for letting me stay out late and finish up this project. Thank you, Zoe, for bringing this to the Art Institute and getting some new conversations started. And thank you to all of you who plan to change your script 100%. Throw it out the door. Look at what's going on around you and rewrite. Rework that shit.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yumi. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Johans. Thank you, Ibere, Daniel. I mean, thank you, so many people. I really appreciate your help and support and challenging me. And I look forward to more. James,
All right.
you're amazing, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. We'll be posting this, by the way, on our YouTube channel for those of you who missed it, and we'll try and clean it up a little bit too, make it, hopefully it'll all work. And yeah, look for it there. Thank you, guys. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Norman.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate it.